guys, Brian here at 3TR, and welcome to another episode of Superman Month. And this time I'll be reviewing the sequel to Superman 2, simply titled Superman 3. Now, in terms of casting, I would say the only real major addition to this cast would be Richard Pryor, comic book legend, God rest his soul. And the plot is a little bit cryptic, but I'm going to try my best to explain it. Basically, Richard Pryor's character plays as a scientist who comes up with this really unique program. And when his bosses get a hold of it, they kind of manipulate and blackmail him into having him work for them in order to gain control of some sort of sophisticated United States satellite, if I remember correctly. On another note, Superman convinces his boss at the Daily Planet to go back to Smallville and kind of go to a little high school reunion, in which he runs into his old love interest, Lana Lang. And, after a little bit, they kind of just start hanging out, and Clark starts to, like her, and he, starts to hang out with her son, and, he decides to, kind of show off him being Superman without really telling anybody. However, Richard Pryor's bosses somehow manage to get to Smallville, disguise themselves as soldiers, and create this kind of synthetic, not exactly perfect version of Kryptonite, which has a different effect on Superman than the original Kryptonite. As the original Kryptonite would usually weaken Superman, this version kind of turns him into a jackass, more or less. And over time, he kind of starts doing a bunch of bad things, like, blowing out the Olympic torch and kind of straightening the Leaning Tower of Pisa, I hope I said that right. And over time, he gets to a point where he really hits a low point, and what it causes is his personality to split into two forms, and he eventually has to have a confrontation between the moral side of Clark Kent and the kind of corrupt side of Superman, in which Clark Kent wins, and then it kind of goes back to his all goody-goody Superman's version. And then he has like a final clash with Richard Pryor's bosses, and they kind of use some type of computer which shoots a concentrated version of Kryptonite, and obviously with Richard Pryor's help, he stops the machine, saves the day, and kind of returns to the Metropolis, and that's really the end of the movie. Now, many have regarded this as being kind of the downward spiral of Superman films, and on some note, I am inclined to agree. The biggest problem this movie has is that it tries to do too many things, but above all things, it tries to introduce too much comedy. Now, as anyone could guess, at this time in period, Richard Pryor was probably one of the most funny comedians at the time. But the problem that he has in this movie is that he can be funny, but he's really not giving any real material to work. It's kind of forced, or his character is seemed to be stupid. And I'm not calling Richard Pryor stupid. I'm saying the material that he was presented made him seem like a stupid character. And if I remember correctly, I think he had more time in this movie than even Christopher Reeve as Superman did. And when you have a comic relief character, or an overly comic relief character, have more screen time than your main protagonist, you have a problem. It's also well to note that during production, it was stated by a couple cast members that the director, Richard Lester, really wasn't all that interested in Superman to begin with, so he really wasn't putting as much effort, which is why the script really wasn't executed as well as it could have been. Now, a couple of the really good ideas that this movie did bring is the idea of having a kind of corrupted version of Superman. And, although some people are kind of criticizing that idea of, Superman's supposed to be all good in the American way. But, this kind of shows that he is not perfect, and he does have a dark side. There is both good and evil in all of us, and this movie greatly showed that side of him very well. And also, all the scenes of him being Clark Kent with Lana Lang in Smallville, those are all really good scenes. If the movie had focused on a storyline where maybe Superman has to choose between either wanting to be Clark Kent or Superman, and maybe his misguided judgment may cause him to kind of rethink his morals, kind of like the effect of Spider-Man 2, then this really could have worked for a really great idea. But sadly, it was just a reasonably decent script with terrible comedy and a terrible direction, which caused it to suffer both critically and in the box office. So, with that in mind, I'm going to have to give Superman I'll be nice. I'll give it a C+. Definitely check it out. There's certainly a lot of good moments worth seeing that contribute to the overall Superman lore, but it just isn't executed as well as it could have been. If you like this movie review, please like, comment down below, and please subscribe to check my future episodes of Superman Month. And please join me tomorrow when I review the sequel and the last of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.